Welcome back to another PocketPod series. PocketPod is a series where my sister Rachel and I make pocket-sized podcasts that fit seamlessly into your busy lives. And today is a very special episode.
This is our first episode where we have a guest. So here with us, we have Dr. Erin Richman. She has received her MBA from the University of Florida and her PhD from the University of Georgia in psychology. So right now she works as the Senior Director for Student Success Initiatives at the University of Florida. But not only does she work as an administrator, she also teaches various psychology courses. So thank you for being here with us, Erin.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
So Erin, when I was texting you, I texted you a couple different topics that we were going to talk about potentially, and you gravitated towards this topic, which is burnout. What drew you so quickly to want to talk about this topic?
That's a great question. I would say for the part of why I was drawn to this topic is for two reasons. One, I manage large teams, and those teams have, in the last couple of years with COVID and with just the pressures that have been put on students and higher education, which is the sector in which I work, we see a lot of burnout and we see a lot of turnover. And so it's an ongoing challenge for people in leadership roles to figure out how to restore wellness in our teams and how to give our folks time to regenerate. But then also myself, I've been there myself in my professional career at different times, feeling burnout. So personally, but then also professionally, thinking about, I've given a lot of thought to it, and this is where I'm very thankful that I have a psychology background, because in my leadership role, I'm able to kind of take that psychology hat, put it on, and think about, okay, what do I need to do as a leader to create the circumstances that help my teams avoid burnout and stay engaged in their work.
And would you mind giving us a quick definition of what burnout is?
Sure. So I would say there's a couple different terminologies that we could use to describe a phenomenon of not feeling good about work, right? And so burnout is, I would say, on the edge of the continuum, where you have someone who is not productive at work. They may be reporting stress. They might have loss of sleep, increased substance abuse issues, but what you see at work, in their work, is less commitment to work. So more absenteeism. So you have a sniffly nose, you call out, you don't go into work that day. So smaller things become bigger things that draw you away from work more easily. You might be actively looking for other jobs while you're at work, even, and actually leaving your job. So burnout, everything I just named are some behavioral expressions of that. But really, when you see employees who we would refer to as burned out, it's people who care about their work, people who at one time were passionate about their work, but are overextended and have gotten past a point of tiredness to the point of burnout. And it's kind of a not great place to be for people who truly care about their work and were once invested in it. It's cognitively, a person is cognitively aware that they're in a different frame of mind than they were in the past.
When you're watching someone go through the spectrum of burnout, have you intervened at different times along the spectrum? And have you found that there's certain points where you feel like is an optimal point to have an intervention with somebody to try and address this progression towards burnout before they reach to that point?
Absolutely. So number one, encouraging, I'd say when I'm identifying that somebody is on the brink of becoming overtired at work, which is easy to do in the line of work that I'm involved in. When I see someone on my team that I'm a leader, that I have a leadership role to, I ask them, like, when are you taking off work next time? when do you have something on the horizon that we can plan some time? What can I do to step in and relieve you, so that you can get a breather at work? Like I'll come and take your duties over for the day so that you can have a breather and have some downtime. And I've just experienced that recently with a couple of folks on my team, who vocalized, that they were hitting the wall mentally. So the intervention to me is, as soon as I see that sign of burnout in my team member, I am going to them and I'm offering them relief, whether that's encouraging them to take a day off, a week off, time off, look ahead. I mean, one of my employees, I said, you're going to Japan in 6 months? Great. Let's plan those 3 weeks now. Let's get them on the calendar so that that person knows, hey, the edge of the pool is coming. I'm going to keep pulling the water through the pool, but I know the edge is out there, and I'm shooting for that. So, and then there's people who I'd say at the very edge of it, that they're beyond overtired. And for those folks, it's a different type of intervention. It's not just, hey, take some time for yourself. It's maybe we need to find a different fit for you at work, because you just can't continue in this current role, but you're a good team member and you're committed to the organization. We don't want to lose you to the organization. Let's find a different slot for you to fill in on. Change their duties up, basically. Change maybe the team that they're part of.
A lot of those things make a lot of sense when you verbalize it, and they all sound very good in practicality. I think the problem that we see in medicine, especially with physicians and nurses, is this sense of guilt, especially when roles are taken away from you, or people offer. Well, I actually don't really see this often where they offer you to take time off. But like, for example, if I have to take a doctor's appointment, there's a certain sense of guilt that I feel to leave work early, or even take a day off just to take care of myself, because I feel like my responsibilities then fall on somebody else. How do you deal with people who have that mindset?
Um, I think I can speak from outside the health sector, um, but I have a set of high achieving people on my team, and I think it's part of a mindset that comes from people who are high achieving, who understand complexity and understand that, hey, when I step out of this, somebody else is picking up my slack, and and understands the sort of ripple effect of doing things. And the difficulty with high achievers is that you end up in roles where a lot is expected of you, and but then you also, as high achievers, put a ton of pressure on yourself to be perfect all the time, and anything less than 100%, 110% performance level, it feels like failure to high achievers, and so it's kind of a toxic mix. And I'd say and then you add in the healthcare sector to that, where hours, I mean, there's just an endless number of hours that can be worked and an endless number of patients that can be seen. And the culture of the healthcare sector, I think, mixed with a lot of high achievers who tend to be drawn to the medical field, whether as nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians, and it becomes almost a symbiotic and dysfunctional relationship. Then you see a lot of burnout and a lot of health consequences to those folks staffing in the medical field.
Yeah, it turns out the medical field does have a high burnout rate. I know we talk about it a lot in school right now. And one of the things we have talked about before is the importance of self-care and the importance of a good support system. So do you think that either of those are better than the other? I know they're both important. Is one better to focus on, or is there a way that maybe the managerial staff can help creating a good support system?
All of that. They're, I mean, I'd say they're all important. And then I'd say the managerial staff or the organization as a whole has to place a priority on the wellness of the employees. What we know, and there's lots of research out there that's published about when an organization, especially healthcare organizations, from the top down, from the CEO level through middle management down to the front line, is committed to wellness and models that, you see better results in the staff. You see the staff taking their own self-care more seriously. And so to your question, is there something that the managerial staff can do? It's the managers that have to do that. It has to be part of the culture of the organization. And at the bare minimum, yes, the managerial staff has to do it. And a great manager can create that for their team, but hopefully it's the organization creating the culture that allows and promotes and encourages managers to create that for their teams. Not just it's an exception that a manager happens to be good and does it for their team, but that the whole organization values and incentivizes wellness among its employees, mental and physical, as mental as much as physical, especially for healthcare workers. So that touches on one part of your question. The other part is having a support system and self-care that's just on the individual themselves. And those are equally important. You have to have a support system both in work and outside of work. And it's important to distinguish those, because at work, those folks that you connect with at work help you reconnect to your purpose. Gallup has done research showing that when you have a friend at work, you're more likely to stay with your organization. You're more likely to stay with that employer because you have a social network built in. And so having the connection and the support system at work, but then also having family, loved ones, significant others, whoever, who support you and understand your work and your passion for that, help you reconnect to your purpose is tantamount. The self-care is just a whole nother aspect to that, which is mental and physical wellness, which we could talk about in a whole podcast unto itself.
Since we defined burnout, could you at least quickly define wellness? And then in that same breath, maybe just like as you see somebody reversing in their direction on the spectrum, how do you start to notice that employees or people who you're working with are now engaging in wellness and are more well in their mental and physical health?
I think as a leader or manager, you get to know your team, first of all. You know human beings on your team, and you know what their normal, healthy baseline is. You hired them for something you saw in them, right? And so when you have that, when you know your team, you know what their spark is, you know what drives them, you know what motivates them. And so if you see that go away, you see their smiling. If they're a smiley person and they're smiling less, I'm thinking of people I've worked with, where I'm like, wow, that person is not smiling like they normally do. There's something going on. I mean, your spidey sense as a leader tells you there's something going on with that person. And so, as a manager, you look for deviations from what is true about that person when they're at their baseline average and when they're at their best versus being at their worst. In terms of wellness and defining wellness, I think you can come at that a number of ways. At work, we would define that as being engaged in your work, being engaged and feeling energetic about your work. Gallup defines engagement as caring about your work, showing up to work, feeling productive at work, and being connected to your purpose as well. And so, but if we think of wellness larger than that, and just holistic wellness of human beings in general, I think of wellness as getting enough sleep at each 24-hour cycle. We all have circadian rhythms. I'm talking to two people in the healthcare field, so this is language you shouldn't be foreign to you. But in a 24-hour cycle, we should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep as 22-year-old plus people, and we should also be drinking and eating enough in that, and having enough nutritional balance in that time period, and then as well getting enough sunlight during that time period, getting enough physical activity during that time period. So I've known a lot of therapists in my life, and one said to me, probably 20 years ago, the signs of mental wellness that she looks for in her patients is, are you sleeping enough? Are you eating right? Are you exercising? And think of that as happening for consecutive days in a row, 24-hour circadian cycle. And if those things are off, or in the converse, let's say a person is sleeping, is exercising, is eating right, and their mood is still depressed or their mood is still highly anxious, then we would be talking about what kind of intervention should we be looking at. Are we looking at a talk therapy or medicine, whatever that may be?
Mm-hmm. That was great. Rachel, what do you think you took away from this episode?
From this episode, I think I'm going to take away that it's really important to find a workplace that harnesses a culture of wellness. That'll help you a lot in your journey in the work field, and making sure that you don't burn out as fast. It's really important to take care of yourself, have a good support system, and yeah, this was a good episode.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm really fortunate that I really enjoy my colleagues and the department that I work in, and it helps dealing with the type of traumatic stuff that I see on a regular basis. It makes it a lot easier when you like your colleagues and you have a supportive environment. But Erin, you were very thorough and very prophetic in the way you talked, very gripping to listen to. You clearly explained a couple definitions that I think are buzzwords that people have been using commonly, especially over the past decade, at the high school level, at the collegial level, and even at the graduate level. And it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I think we really thank you for bringing some light to it and explaining it really clearly for everyone.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to have you back this time next week.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll have my people talk to your people. We'll set it up.
We'll get in touch.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan. All right, guys. Good chatting with you.
You too.
Bye.
We'll see you
Bye.
next time.